it's electromagnetic signals that are coming in. It's awareness, it's thoughts and feelings, which are an electromagnetic signal. And they only come in when you breathe. There's a shaming around the emotion. That's the program that comes in. It's not, the message that the child gets is that it's not okay. So it's not a fix, it's a meeting. It's a way to actually begin to become present with those parts of yourself.
Some people come into your life not just as practitioners, but as catalysts. And today's guest is one of those people for me. Phil is a naturopathic doctor and an osteopath whose work has genuinely transformed my life, not just physically, but in how I understand the body, healing, and what it actually means to feel good in my body. He's the author of Insight Osteopathy, and his approach is a rare and beautiful bridge between Eastern and Western medicine, blending science, intuition, structure, and soul in a way that feels both deeply grounded but profoundly expansive. Phil has one of the most interesting personal journeys in healing I've ever encountered, and the way he works with the body reflects that lived wisdom. His sessions don't just treat symptoms, they create understanding, connection, and lasting change. So this conversation is incredibly informative, deeply human, and full of insights that can shift how you relate to your body and your health. I'm so honored to share him with you. Let's dive in. Well, I have been held by a lot of practitioners in my time, but no one has really brought me to the depths that you have, Phil. So really, really honored to have you on today. Thank you, thank you. I'd love to understand, what do you think is really going wrong with the way that we are treating the body?
There's a very wide aspect to that because mostly people, they go to a doctor if there's a body thing, and we've been sort of entrained the doctor is the person to go to. And I suppose very simply, it's a very reductionist view. So when you see the doctor, in fact, there are specialists. You've got a general practitioner, but they're usually the channel to send you to the heart person and the ear, nose and throat and the gynecologist and the urologist and so on, so or the orthopedic surgeon. So I think what goes wrong is that massively is we're seen in this way as parts rather than this integrated whole being and how everything is affecting everything else. We're a unified field. And if there's something going on in your eyes, it's so much connected to what's going on in your kidneys or your liver and so on. Chinese medicine has known that for a very long time. And the other thing is, of course, treating the symptoms, which means that I've got a pain or I've got a swelling or I've got a rash or even I've got a mental problem. Well, that's moving away from the body, but we'll get into that. So the symptom is treated rather than the intelligence of your body actually giving you, it's informing you. It's not, there's nothing wrong. It's actually a symptom is a signal, and it's the attempt of the body to correct whatever it's doing. I mean, a good example is feeling sick. I mean, it's such an obvious one. It's like, what you really probably need to do is actually throw up, because if you throw up, the poison will come out of you. One of the powerful drug is it's called an antiemetic. So you inject it in, don't feel sick anymore, which is great because I feel so much better that the poison's staying inside me.
And when you're talking poison, I think it's important to note for anyone listening, poison isn't always just ingested, right? Poison can be emotional too.
Absolutely, yeah. Poison, yeah. How would you define it? Toxicity. Something that's impacting you and pushing you. And toxic, I suppose toxicity of poison is, it's at some level hurting. Yeah, it's not creating a congruence. It's hurting. It doesn't serve you.
And that's the intelligence of the body, right? When we are feeling a certain thing in our body, that's the intelligence of the body letting you know, hey, there's something wrong here.
100%, yeah. That is the intelligence. Yeah.
And in working in osteopathic medicine as well as naturopathic medicine, what did you see that was missing in the way that you are now treating your clients?
Well, osteopathy, the way I was taught and the way that, as far as I know, it's still taught, is that the major tenet is structure governs function. And it was something that was, I think, brilliantly devised, sort of connected to by an American doctor still 150 to 200, almost 200 years ago, when he kind of had this realization, and the realization that if something is compressing, if there's pressure on a nerve, or if something is out of alignment, it's going to affect blood flow, it's going to affect drainage, it's going to affect nourishment, it's going to affect toxicity leaving the body. Structure governs function. In osteopathic medicine, that's the primary focus. So kind of a parallel to physiotherapy and a parallel to chiropractic medicine as well, where you look at the body physically and you find out very cleverly and very aptly where structure is aberrant, is out of place, misaligned, all these different kind of terms, and you correct it. And it's very, very helpful.
And how many years of school was that?
It varies. For me, it was 5 years of learning, 5 years of training.
And was that the beginning of your journey?
That was, yeah. So in the UK, I know in America, all osteopaths are MDs. And so you practice medicine, but you kind of specialize in what osteopathy is. Whereas in Europe and in UK, where I trained at the British School of Osteopathy, I was being taught very much the same thing as an MD. We kind of didn't really focus much at all on pharmacy or surgery, but we focused very much more on osteopathic technique. So we learned all the pathology is the important thing, and it's important to be able to recognize where there is a disease process and really intuit it, as well as really study pathology so that is there something other than a structural thing that's going on? Infection or a cancer or something like that, or worse. So yeah, it's a long depth training.
And what got you into that in the first place?
I think I knew when I was very young. Children are asked, what are you going to do when you grow up? And my immediate answer, I always remember I was about 5 or 6, was it just came, but it was like, I'm going to be a doctor. So it was kind of in my soul. I think it was a life path that I knew, something within me. And I remember my mother as well, who got ill when I was very young. When I was 12, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she died when I was just turned 17. And I think there was a part of me that always wanted to help. I felt very powerless as a child. And with what was already in my soul, eventually I was led to the path of osteopathic medicine. But it's interesting because something steered me away from conventional surgical pharmaceutical. And when I finally discovered that osteopathy exists, it was, that felt very right to me.
And how long did you practice osteopathic medicine for before you evolved into the next layer of you?
When I think back, I think it was about the 5th year of practicing, I realized that something was missing, because people would come in and I got better and better and better at the structural technique. So good at it that people would travel from afar, and my practice got very busy very quickly. But it was when people came back, I started getting confused. It was like, I thought I fixed you. And what I wasn't really getting at, and I didn't have the wherewithal to kind of help at that point in my practice, was what's other than the structural disarray that's in you is going on in your life. I didn't know how to inquire about their marriage or what was happening at work. Somebody was bullying them, somebody had just died, or there were stresses. But there was a part of me that was always curious about that, because I would always talk to my patients, and I started to gather that information. But it was actually when I was 30 and I went to an island in Greece called Skiros, and I, for the first time, experienced holotropic breathwork, which is a really powerful technique. And it impacted me so much, because just with this breathing technique and music, I suddenly became a 6-year-old, and I was literally a 6-year-old boy. And I remember a point where I felt abandoned, and there was a lot of grief, and I was able to process it. And at the end of that week, I thought, wow, this is something I really want to learn, and I want to bring into my practice so I can share with my patients. And from then I actually met Stanislav Grof, and I did a training with him. And then I started to bring it into my practice. So that's how it started. That's how I started to realize that the emotional and the unconscious part of us is stored, because it just blew me away when I fast-tracked to that point. And that's when I really started my journey of looking more deeply beyond the structure.
And would you say that the 6-year-old is probably the biggest part of you that you hold most dear in your emotional journey? Was that a big trauma trigger moment for you?
It was one of them. Opened a whole portal into awareness of my childhood. And it was in that week, because there were 2 workshops I did. And the first one was reclaiming the inner child. That was what it was called. But it morphed into holotrophic breathwork. And then the second week was a lot of group work. And that's where I had the breakthrough. It was that moment that I realized, when somebody in the group, in fact, the group broke down because everybody started getting ill that week. In Greece, one person got gastroenteritis and then another person did. And then the facilitator did. And one day we didn't have a facilitator and the group kind of broke down. And somebody threw an accusation at me. And they said, "Who's judging you?" And I remember breaking down and breaking in when I realized, wow, I was judged very harshly as a little boy. And that was the very beginning of my sort of internal psychological journey, just the very beginning of it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we breathe, we know there's a lot of different breathwork practitioners and things
Yes.
going on this island and ways to access that subconscious. And
Yeah.
why can we access the subconscious with that breath? What is happening in the body?
Yeah. Breathing is really how consciousness comes into the body. I saw somebody talking the other day and it was kind of amusing, but they said, imagine if you stop breathing. It's like 4 minutes is usually the threshold for most people. Some people can hold their breath for longer, some less. But if you, beyond that, you'd become unconscious. And it was, the message there was, it's not oxygen, it's not about the air, it's electromagnetic signals that are coming in. It's awareness, it's thoughts and feelings, which are an electromagnetic signal. And they only come in when you breathe, which is why you become unconscious when you stop breathing. Consciousness and breath are so interconnected. And if you hold your breath, it's very difficult to feel. When you want to feel, you have to do it through breathing. And in fact, holding the breath is how we control our feelings. And we're taught that because babies naturally don't hold their breath.
And we're not taught to express our feelings after being a baby. It's really not acceptable at what? At what age do you think we really stop feeling comfortably?
Well, I think that's such a good point because it's part of what I kind of refer to as the program, because it's the most natural thing in the world to express emotion because you're regulating your nervous system when that happens. And that's exactly what a baby's doing. It's regulating. I always think of it as it's in fear when it's upset, because usually there's a need, and usually the need is it's hungry, or it needs to be held, so the physical touch is crucial, or it's in some sort of discomfort. So it regulates and it's calling for the need to be met with the cry. And then it escalates if the need isn't met quickly enough in the time frame. It becomes angry. So you have a crying baby, then you have an angry baby, and that's the one that hasn't had a response. It's literally what's passed on through. So it's apparent how present that parent is. And parents are taught by their parents, which are taught by their parents. And I've yet to meet a fully conscious parent who can just hold their baby and communicate, you're safe to express, at the same time as really fulfilling the needs of that little baby. Usually it's shh, 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 it's okay, stop crying. And as soon as the verbal stage comes in, it's enough. No, stop crying. So that's the message we get. And we only get that message because our parents got that message. So it's very much a program that's passed on. And eventually when the child gets to 2 and you can talk to the child, it's, the proverbial one, which you'll hear, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. It's an awful message, but people repeat it. Mm-hmm. There's a shaming around the emotion. That's the program that comes in. It's not, the message that the child gets is that it's not okay.
Little girls are seen, not heard.
Right.
All of those things.
Big boys don't cry. They're proverbial, but it's in the program. It's there's a discomfort around a feeling, a child in a supermarket having a tantrum.
That's not okay.
Right, the embarrassment and so on. And rather than And I do see a lot of consciousness these days, and there's lots of people talking about it and making posts, and I love to see that. But mostly it's passed on. I hear my patients saying, I can't believe it sounds like my mother is coming through my voice right now, or my father. And even myself, I often hear bless him, my father's voice, through things that he said that were said to him.
Right.
It's strong.
And then we have the different ways of working with that. We have to leave them in the crib and cry it out. I mean, that's horrendous. Then then you have the other side of the spectrum of let them scream and throw the temper tantrum. You have an 8-year-old throwing a temper tantrum that's not regulating either. But I guess, can you even hold your child and regulate them if you can't regulate yourself?
Exactly. And that is the key. That's the key to it all. Conscious parenting is self-regulation. And I think that's where it goes wrong for a lot of parents, because they get into a state and the state is transmitted to that child. And very often the child is upset because it's not receiving presence from the parent. And that's what it's asking for. It just wants the parent to be there and get its attention.
You look at the way that our system is built. You've got two parents working, trying to make money, trying to stay healthy, trying to take care of a family, not able to regulate their nervous system. So they're coming in, that child is then feeling that manic adrenaline, aren't they, with the contact? And you wonder why our kids are growing up with ADHD and all of these different things.
Yeah, very, very much so.
So how do we fix that?
I've kind of, sort of the word fixing, I kind of move towards nothing needs fixing, because there's nothing wrong, because it's kind of making out there's a wrongness. It's more being aware and changing the relationship. I prefer to go down that route. And it's very much changing the relationship with ourselves. And what you're talking about is where discomfort shows up. We're uncomfortable, and often people, when they show up for the first time, they're not even sure why they're there. But I know, and they know, because usually they arrive because they had a conversation with somebody who shared their experience, and it spoke to a part of them that's uncomfortable, that's hurting. So it's not a fix, it's a meeting. It's a way to actually begin to become present with those parts of yourself. And I think that's the starting point, it's awareness. And for me, I'm always honored when somebody shows up in my space, because it means they're ready. If they're there, they're ready. That means they're ready. Because you can intellectualize and you can talk about there are so many psychological processes, and all of them are great. Everyone's got a gift, got something useful. But ultimately, I think for me, it's, when people talk about, you just got to love yourself. It's actually, what that really means is, can I relate to all the different parts of me? Because there might be a part of me that I really, I hate that part. People are sort of really fighting it, so it becomes an exile, and it becomes pushed away. And we're grappling with it. And the most beautiful thing is where people bring it into the light, and the relationship is better. And it's just, I'm okay with that part, because that part, it has got a message. That part had an unmet need. That part has got emotional charge that wasn't expressed. It's got words that weren't able to be spoken at the time. So this is the journey for me. And that's when you get to a place of integration, because often people do things, they do breath work and they do body work, and they feel better. But a few weeks later, a few days later, whenever it is, it's like, it's back. I'm still in this. And I hear the same thing, which is, I've done that. I've done these workshops. I've done this before. I've had people say, I think I've done this before, when I'm explaining what it's all about. And there's a missing piece to what really needs to happen.
What is that missing piece? I
think the missing piece, because the important parts are releasing tensions out of the body, for sure. Because if you psychologize something, but you're still holding a pattern through myofascial contraction, it's going to show up, because you're going to feel it in your body. Releasing those body parts are important. Usually embedded in that is emotional charge. So it's really important that has an expression as well through breathing. And that's why a lot of modalities are so helpful, and people keep doing them. The missing piece is the mental. And the mental is a loop. And mostly it's unconscious. You don't know it's there. And it's a voice, it's words, it's a belief. I name it as a non-serving belief, and it's a program, and sometimes it's somebody else's. And I always break it down because there are so many people who talk about, oh, there's this, this, and this. I simplify it. And for me, it's all of them are down to one thing, and it's you think something is wrong. And I kind of split that into, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, but really it's still wrong. So it's this wrong, and that's a construct, that's an idea, it's a signal, and none of it's true. None of it's true, because there's nothing wrong. There just is. It's just whatever it is as it is. Somebody will say, well, that's amazing, and somebody else will say, well, I don't like that. And they're opinions. So wrongness is a program it's in the human field. It's
we start school and it's all about be a good girl, get graded,
Absolutely.
Stand in line, follow the rules, 100%. That's what's good, following the rules.
Doing it right.
What's good isn't, using your creativity. It's we talk, oh, you were good, you got an A, you were good, it's all about I want to be good.
Yeah.
And what is good? And I think as you get older, you start to see I'm trying to be good in all these areas of my life. But in that, I've now got 400 masks on because good to each person I'm trying to be good with is a different version of me that's learned to survive.
Yeah.
And then when we start doing the parts work, you start to see, holy shit, I've got a lot of parts that are fragmented here and stuck.
That's the most exhausting thing when people talk about immune suppression and all the sort of disorders. It used to be yuppie flu, didn't it, a long time ago? It is that this is the energy that's being taken from us, is trying to be in control and show up through a mask, am I doing it right? Because inside, I feel wrong.
What I'm doing is wrong. I need to be fixed.
Yeah, or, the billionaire mindset is a great example because there are so many successful people, and what's driving them is this not enough from the very get-go. There's nothing, I'm not making any judgments of it. It's part of the human condition. So, it's all perfect in a way, but it's when it makes us ill. It's when it's so exhausting that we feel, a lot of people want to take their lives. And that's the only reason why. If they could have processed and just moved the energy in that moment, because there would be a fear, there would be, I can't do this anymore. I can't be with this anymore. I don't know anybody who's suicided for any other reason than this is too much.
What even is enough? We're trying to define a thing that doesn't even exist. What is enough?
Exactly.
I want to be more than enough. Well, why isn't enough enough?
Right.
Like what? Why are we always trying for more? I always say this. I've noticed with myself. Like, I get to the top of the mountain and that's not good enough. I got to get to the next mountain and the next mountain. But what I've learned, rather than beating myself up for that, I'm like, you know what? That's a part of me I actually really like. That's a seeker. If I can look at it through the lens of I love learning. I'm enjoying learning the modalities. I don't have to do it because I'm broken. Then it can become a good part for me. But it's that authenticity, right? Like, who are you pushing for? Are you pushing for yourself, or are you pushing to be accepted, or what is it? Yeah. So when you started treating the clients with the breath work, what changed?
So the big change there was my understanding, number one, that there was an emotional component, and how can I provide a space for that emotional component to be expressed? That was the massive change. When I started to do that, I was very selective because back then, I was still identified with the osteopathic clinic, and it was so clinical, and it was always my shoulder, my neck, my back, my knee, sports injury, pregnancy, childbirth, all those sorts of things, digestive disorders, all the things that osteopathic physicians deal with. And then I'd just intuit, I think there's stuff going on here. I can feel the stress that's coming through. Kind of an experimental space for me because I hadn't got to where I'm at now, where I've devised this whole structure. It was, what can happen if I hold that space for people to move emotional energy? And that's how it started. And the gain was that afterwards people would feel different. And I remember the most dramatic case actually was a guy, and for about 2 years, this guy, he was a builder and really big guy. And every month or so he'd come in and I'd do all the different techniques and I'd free his neck. And he'd walk out saying, "Oh, that's great. Oh, I can move now." And then very, very slowly he'd come back. It was never perfect. It was always a lot better. He would always come back and it was all jammed up again. Once I sort of established the breathwork, I invited him. I said, "Come and try this." And he had such a big process and there was so much rage towards his father that he was really able to get out. And I remember so vividly, after that session, he got up and he went like this. "Oh my goodness," he said, "I can move." And I didn't manipulate him that day. There was no manipulation. And he expressed all of this rage and he was completely free. And I saw him, I think he came a month later, and it never returned. I didn't need to keep manipulating his spine. It taught me something really profound, because he's one example that pops into my mind right now. But there were many, many, many people. And what I learned was that as an osteopath, I am literally just, it's like opening a valve in people by releasing the mechanical tension in their body. It's important. I'm sure I'll always do it. People always ask for it. But since doing the field work now, it's something else. It's something shifts. Something is, I wouldn't say permanent, but it's a shift in consciousness.
I think for anybody watching that doesn't understand when we're talking about the field and about the consciousness, can you explain that a little bit from more of the scientific and that way for people to understand it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's had various names, actually. It's kind of evolved over time. The first name was Soma Psyche. What it is, what field work is, it includes the structure. What the field really is we have a body, and really what it's made up of, it's not just the musculoskeletal system, what's running through it. And I think a lot of people are talking about this thing now, which is fascia. And more people are talking about it, and it's being studied more. But the main thing about it, because it's a connective tissue, but it's more than that. Some people call it a liquid crystal matrix. It runs everywhere. It's entwined in all of the muscles and the skeletal system, but also organs. And what's deep within the fascia and what runs through it is the bioelectricity. And what is bioelectricity? It's an electromagnetic signal. The electric part is thought form, which means if you have a thought, it's an electrical event. Electromagnetism means you've got two waves which are entwined. That's the same as sound. It's the electromagnetic spectrum, infrared, ultraviolet, sight, what you can see. So if the electric part is thought, it makes complete sense that what's entwined with what you think is what you feel. So the emotion is the magnetic part. So for me, it's a kind of a definition of consciousness. And language is an important thing, because there's always been a split which separates. And that's that there's a design there to separate people. So it's like, oh, you're religious, God. Oh, and then there's the scientific people here. It splits. It's designed to do that, to separate. The truth is, there's truth in both. And I'm trying to bring together. So this is literally the physics and biology of what we've called for thousands of years spirit, right? It's spirit. And the Chinese have understood it, Shen, all different words. Prana, life force. It's the same. It's the same thing. But if we get biology and physics, so we can get the whole world in a unified field of understanding and just find a language to communicate so everybody's on the same page, it moves through you. Consciousness is moving through you. Your soul is the container for it. So when you come in, when you incarnate, your soul it's like a hard drive. It's like all the collection of all the existence of you ever being. But it's part of the collective. It's part of, some people use the analogy, and I like it, of an ocean of water. There's not a word for the trillion, billions, whatever the word would be, gazillion drops, but you take one drop and there's you, and there's another drop and there's me. And if you put those drops back in, there's a vast, infinite field of consciousness. But it's unique. That drop that's you is unique. So the field is the myofascial body that comes out of DNA, because DNA from a sperm, DNA from an egg meet and they kind of splice. And the DNA is actually signaling a frequency, and everything comes out of frequency. Because if you have sand on a drum, cymatics, the vibration, you'll see patterns form, and you form out of patterns, and it's actually your DNA that's creating those patterns. I saw somebody who had a picture, it was like sacred geometry, and then another one on top, and then there was another one on top, and then suddenly a face appeared. We form out of a frequency. So the field is this information field, and it's literally, we exist in a physical body, but what makes us us is all the experiences we ever had and keep having. And we express ourselves through our thoughts, and we experience everything through what we feel. So the field is all of this, and then it's showing up at these different levels.
Kind of like you're choosing what radio station to tune into based on how you're feeling.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and I do agree. I think you go to religion and everyone's trying to explain those words in these but again, those experiences are also real. You go and you do 5-MeO-DMT, you take hallucinogenic, and you can all of a sudden see beyond the unseen, the world. You can see the sacred geometry, you can see the patterns, and then you come back to this physical reality, and it's like, wait, I don't have words for that.
Exactly.
Because there really aren't until we talk like this, right? Like this is the bridge. And it's like it's almost like the Eastern and Western philosophies need to converge and work together to create a whole system, because that's the split of humanity, isn't it?
It's separation. And that is the commonality, that when people do have a journey, whatever it is, DMT or ayahuasca, it's the same. It's the shared experience. You go beyond the veil. People see the same things, the same experience. So, and
it has to be real.
That's what brings it. That's what Groff talked about, because Groff was an MD. I think he's still alive. He's an MD, but he was given LSD, and this was in the 50s. And he's so intellectual, and he didn't believe any of this, reincarnation, past life, or anything. But because he was so intellectual, he saw the truth. And he's written an amazing book called Beyond the Brain. And he just literally talks about the archetypes and all the different things that are out there in terms of the rich mythology. It's all from a deep knowing. A lot of people, and I myself included, when I first took magic mushroom, and I remember this feeling of, I understand everything. And it's often a bit of a joke, it's like, people make fun out of it. But there's something profound in that, because I think Greg Braden talks about the number of particles that's in us is exactly the same number that's in the universe. There's a finite number that's in our DNA, and he calls it the divine codes. And it makes sense because it's there. So if you can get out of your own way, and we're so busy with the program that this is the only reality, this solid reality, and we're not, it's actually quantum physics that says, it's actually all. So we've got that explanation. But when you go beyond that and you see another reality, and when I connected to that, I understand everything. The understanding was just that connecting to the vastness. And religion has always said that's God. And there's so much deep truth in the religions because it was contrived.
Until they humanized.
To control. So, it's religions, it's invented because they're mechanisms to control. But I'll just stop there about that.
Yeah, that's another story for another day, which we could really dive into.
Yeah.
But it is wild. Like LSD was what opened my whole journey up. I went somewhere else. I was witnessing my body at the time, but I was somewhere else, and both places was so real. And I was like, but I can choose where I want to be.
Right.
But I was like, wait a minute, but I can come. And then when I came down, I felt horrible. I was like, I didn't want to be there. So I went back, but I could wit. And it was so wild. And when I came back, I ended up with some psychosis because I was like, nobody had taught me any of that. I hadn't experienced that. And that's where my journey began, from that fracture almost of really remembering that there's a place where there is infinite love and understanding and compassion and truth. And that exists too.
Absolutely.
But so why am I here?
Yes.
What's the point?
Yes.
So what is the point?
Yeah.
Why are we here experiencing this polar field in the way that we are? A choice?
You want to go deep?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'd love to.
When you were talking about that experience, it reminded me of Anita Morjani's book, Dying to Be Me. And I recommend everybody read it because that's kind of bringing science and spirit together, because her story is that she literally did die. And then she had this incredible journey. And then she went into this vast space. And her father had been dead for some time, but she could feel him. She could feel his essence. And what she got to the point, she got to the point where she could stay in this vastness because it was beautiful and it was pure. It was a field of love. And there was another part of her. What's the point? And she could go back. This is what her consciousness showed her. She could go back into her body with all the cancer, but she'd have to be different. Hence the title, Dying to Be Me. And she chose that. And when she came back, she let go of all the patterns to need to please, to be what distorted and got her into the cancerous state was, in fact, the strong programming, because she was in Indian culture, and it was, you have to marry this person. And it was like, I don't want to marry this person. I want to marry who I fall in love with. So she was distorting herself. And can you imagine all the things we talked about? The emotions she was holding, all that tension, her fascia contracting, lymph wasn't draining, her autonomic nervous system was under compression, so it was hijacking her nervous system. Of course she's going to get cancer. It makes complete sense. The biggest thing behind cancer is strong emotions that haven't been released, because an emotional charge causes conflict in the body. It conflicts, it contracts. Structure governs function. So when she made that choice, when she came back, she was a different person. She didn't care. In fact, the number of people I've met or who've written really interesting books, like there's one guy, and I met him, and he wrote a book called Fuck It. And John, I can't remember his surname, and I went to one of his retreats in Italy, and his breakthrough was when he was on a tube train in London, because he was a high-powered marketing executive, and he was going backwards and forwards, deadlines, and there was so much stress in his life. And one day on the tube, he was with his wife, and he just broke down. So in that moment, he was feeling his emotions, and it was so overwhelming. He broke down and he sobbed, and he sobbed, and he sobbed, and he noticed, because there was another part of him that wasn't his body, that wasn't his mind, that wasn't his thoughts, that was observing. And he saw himself like a little boy breaking down and sobbing on the tube train in the middle of rush hour traffic on the Piccadilly line at 6:00 in the evening. And he didn't care. The part that was watching allowed him to sob and sob. And that was his breakthrough point in that moment. He broke through because he didn't care. His structures of being perfect, of doing the right thing, of being somebody else to satisfy society, the program's needs, the schooling. And he gave up his job. He changed his life. He now runs retreats. He wrote this wonderful book. He's an amazing guy. He's really cool. I think it's a mechanism, and it's a necessary thing. Even Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, his story, it's the same story. I remember so clearly when I read his book, and he said, I can't live with myself anymore. And then this voice said, well, if I can't live, who am I if I can't live with me? Who is this? And he broke down in that moment, and he passed out, in actual fact. And when he woke up the next day, that's when, for the next 2 years, he just literally was in awe It's a deep philosophical question, but I think for me, the model that works for me is that everything is perfect, and we talk about a unified field, and I like the teachings of Neil Donald Walsh and Conversations with
My
God.
favorite book. I'm rereading it right now.
I love his book. I love his work because he conceptualizes up and down, and then this simplicity of, well, hang on a minute, I'm up. Oh, now I'm down. And then he says, hang on, how can I possibly know that I'm up? The unified field. Unless I've come out of the unified field into duality and down. I've been down, up, down, love, hate, and all the other constructs. Duality. And so it's really understanding duality, that there's nothing wrong with it. It's a way to experience. So for me, there's no fixing. For me, it's being with what is, because the journey of the soul for me is, it's having an experience, and the soul comes in not consciously. People say we choose our parents or whatever. It's not conscious until it is conscious. But you say, well, why did I choose to not have any limbs in my body, just have one arm? And I was listening to a beautiful man talk about, that's his journey. He was born without legs, or somebody born into a war zone, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, it's an experience, and the soul, at some level, that's the mystery, chooses the experience. But there's nothing wrong with that experience. The thing is, unless you fully express, you're never going to integrate that experience. You've got to express. And when you do express, I promise you, you're going to learn. The soul will learn. And for me, those are the three. The depth of the soul, it's like the purpose, the reason. It's like, we're here to experience. End of story. You must express. If you have an experience and you're doing that, it's never going to integrate, and you're never going to learn. You're going to recycle.
I think we've been trying to explain that in so many different forms, right? The shamanic wheel, they talk about all the directions, and we're moving in a cycle, and you're always, trying to integrate the wisdom of where you were before. But you're right. It's if we continue to move in, right? So I love the shamanic way of this. I don't know if you've heard this before, but when you're at the center of the wheel, everything makes sense.
Yes.
You're connected to everything and nothing. It's like, it's that beyond the veil feeling. You're in you're with spirit. Yeah. You're in alignment, right? And then we decide, I'm going to go experience this thing. And we choose that. Nobody's choosing that for you. It's kind of the big thing. We choose it. Yeah. And then we get out there and we're like, why did I do that? But every time we come back to the center, it's almost like there's wisdom in it. If you can awaken to the wisdom and start to actually integrate. And this is why what you do is so different from me. It's not just going into an experience of breath work where you go in and you leave and you're like, I feel good, but what the hell just happened, right? Yeah. It's not, there's a process in taking people in to the experience so they can see beyond the unseen and connect the dots, and we leave more whole. So that process must have evolved even further from breath work. And how did you get to that stage? Yeah.
The next big step for me was, and it's funny because I started a master's degree, I don't know when it was, 2009 or something, and in psychosynthesis, psychology, because there was a big tragedy in my life, and I lost my son, and I remember being so fractured and so, it was such a painful experience. It was, people say losing a child is like the worst. And I thought, what can I do? What do I need to be able to manage, to cope, to survive this? Because I just felt so shattered and fragmented. And so I enrolled at the Institute of Psychosynthesis, and it wasn't that helped, because it was so intellectual. What it was I came across a book by Brandon Bayes, and the book was called The Journey. And what was really strange, it was so synchronous, was that through the post I got a box set of the book. And so I listened to it, because I'd read it and I listened to it. But there was a training with her in London, literally like 2 weeks away. And it was one of those moments, it's like I'm being told, or I've got to go. and I did go. And what I learned there changed everything, because I was doing this breath work, it was, 1 day a week, selecting people. The journey work and what I gained from there changed everything, because what journey work is, her story is that she had a tumor which was the size of it. She names the size, a basketball. It was big, and in her womb. So she had a tumor in her uterus, and she went to the doctor, and she found out because she was bleeding, and they said, "You've got to have this surgically removed now, otherwise you're going to die." And Brandon Bays had been working with a lot of people, alternative practitioners, and she was in that crowd, Esalen crowd, I think, in the States. And she was also a practitioner. She knew very much about, I think she's not an acupuncturist, but she knew about nutrition and homeopathy. And she thought, she just knew, it's like, I want to really deal with why this happened. And she made a deal with the doctor. She said, "I need some time." It's interesting because this was in the 90s, and the doctor said, "You've got 6 weeks. If you don't sort this out in 6 weeks, I'm not going to be able to help you." Anyway, 6 weeks later, she went for a scan and there was nothing. She didn't have surgery. She didn't have chemotherapy. She didn't have radiotherapy. She did quite a lot of homeopathy, and she obviously changed her nutrition. But one thing she did was she went to see somebody, and she did what I do. And that she was on the table for several hours, and the person was really working on her body. And as the person was working on their body and a feeling came up, the person said, "What's here right now? Can you go into that feeling?" And she went all through the layers. She went into the feeling, memories came up. She went into that memory. And each time the body was worked on, each time the memory brought up another feeling, layers and layers and layers and layers. And she did it quite a few times. And the piece I added was around the belief, because it wasn't just from the journey. The journey was a very, very good structure to really go through all the layers of emotion. And she has a very different process where she ends up in what's known as a campfire. So there's a ritual of letting go of things. And it was complex, and it's not always appropriate when you're working with people, you've got limited time with people. So I took quite a lot from it. And the missing piece, because going through the emotional layers was profound and vital. And the missing piece was I adapted from that. And it was actually the belief. And the belief is what kept the loop. And if you can bring, and this is what always happens in sessions, is if somebody is looping and you inquire, is it true? If it's a non-serving belief, is it true? And a lot of people in that moment realize, no, of course it's not true. But my subconscious was allowing me to keep that thought pattern in place. That's the light of awareness. And that's when transformation takes place completely. You're not the same, and it can't be the same. And that's what I've witnessed. And there are layers to that, because sometimes people need to visit, and it's how thoroughly they're able to do that, how thoroughly, because as you know, you come back, and when you go deeper and deeper and deeper into those layers, what really is the breakthrough is when, even if it's something that it's like, I can't change that because that's the belief and I'm not going to be able to change that belief, how you relate to that part of you. If you relate to that part of you with kindness, with compassion, and with love, it cannot be the same. That's where transformation takes place, where love comes back to that part of you. And that's what makes the complete difference.
The loop is real, right? I feel like anybody listening to this can know the loop,
Yeah.
My most recent one was I'm unworthy of love because I've gained weight. I've gained weight because I overeat. I overeat because I'm so tired. I'm so tired because I overwork, and I overwork because I'm unworthy of love. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes.
You know, there's none of this is serving me. The overworking and the overeating isn't serving me. Yeah. Right? So how do we, you know, and when you go into those deep layers and you meet that part, that part is in a lot of pain. And it's really, I think really it's grief that we're afraid to feel the most, you know, like we're so ashamed of the anger, and the anger is masking the grief that we're so afraid to feel.
Absolutely.
So are you saying you just need people to come and get on your table for like 3 days and you can maybe solve it all? Well, 3 days straight.
Well, I like to pace things. I think, you know, it's like studying. You've got to do things in chunks. And I think it's important. You know, people often go to retreats and they're doing stuff all day. It can be exhausting and overwhelming. And I'm very aware of, you know, re-trauma. And I like to think that does not happen in my space, because it's the preparation, as you know. The most important thing is when people lie down. I've explained, you know, we've touched upon things today, but I go into huge depth. So they look at me and it's like, I know, I get it, I understand. So they know exactly why they're there and what they're there to do. But yeah, the emotional part of it, because often people think, or sometimes emotions don't even come up. And they hide in different, or there's a different guise. What you said is really important, because grief is the key. In fact, there's only two, rage and grief. And I always understand them as there's a line. And on this side of the line, it feels good. And then there's all the different degrees. That feels nice. That feels amazing. But there's the line. As soon as you come on the other side of the line, it doesn't feel good. It's not very nice. That's awful. So there's a spectrum for both feelings, but there's a line. You know, one is cortisol, one is dopamine. You can go into the neurophysiology.
Is rage adrenaline?
Well, rage can be. You can have, rage, adrenaline and cortisol usually. It's fear. What I'm really saying here is that it's all fear. When you cross the line and it doesn't feel good, it's an aspect of fear. Mm. And fear's always got a story, because, and I ask, I'm scared because guilt is fear. I feel guilty because I'm sad. Sad, there's fear. If somebody died, I'm scared because I'm never going to see this person. I can't talk to this person. So there's always a reason. Fear is, there's a reason behind the fear. And here's the thing. Fear releases itself through grief. Fear releases itself through rage. So they're integrating emotions. There's so much power in them. And here's the thing with grief. Tears contain molecules. They contain, there's pharmaceutical molecules, not pharmaceutical, but molecular. There's molecules that can be measured in a laboratory that are perfect to actually balance you. So it's your perfect medicine. A tear is the perfect medicine. The other thing about grief and any emotion is it is intelligent. It's a signal that informs you. If you hold a feeling, you're going to be in grief. It's like, I'm holding the grief. I'm holding the grief. People just have that statement and they hold the grief and they stay holding the grief and they stay where they're at. When the grief is released, when the grief is processed, when the grief doesn't loop because the mind understands, the intelligence of the emotion connects you to a higher source. Just like you said, the center of the wheel and the shamanic wheel. There, in the center is the intelligence, the knowing.
When you lost your son, processing through that grief, what were the layers that were associated with moving through something that big?
The biggest one, because I remember before a certain point, and I'll share that point, was it would come in waves and I would just sob. I remember for 2 years driving to work. It was a very long drive. And I had an iPod then, and it had so much music because I collected music for breathwork and other stuff as well. And I had it on random, and I will always say, what do I need to listen to today, Ben? I speak to him. And it would blow me away that it was like, oh my God, you're listening to me, because it was so appropriate. But the biggest thing for me was when, you see, there was a belief. And somebody named it for me, and it was actually, I went to a church, and I used to go I used to go every week. And it was, in England, it was called the spiritualist. And so you'd have a sermon, and then you'd always have one of these people, and it was a bit, they had their ways, and it was like, you'd hear them say, oh, I'm getting an elderly man, and I think it's you, sir. I think it's the person with the red shirt. It was always a bit disappointing. I always think, but I just went, and I'd seen psychics and stuff. And one day I left, and at the end of it, disappointed as usual. And a woman came running, and she said, and she was just in the audience, and she said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. And she said that I just got two boys when I was sitting there. She said, one's here and one isn't here, because he was a twin. Mm. And she said, does that make sense? They all say, does it make sense? So I said, yes. And she said, can we go somewhere to talk? And I spent the next sort of nearly an hour with her, and she went regularly to the church, and she was just in the audience, but she was very psychic. I found out later that she was very involved with the church, and she just knew it was me. And she basically said, and she connected to him, and I knew, I could feel it. I could feel it because I'd been to psychics, and this time it was very, very real. I just knew. And because she said certain things. And one of the biggest things she said was, he knows, she said, that your grief is about him leaving, and so young, because he was only 11, and him not being able to do all the things, because he was going to be a musician, he was going to do this, and he was going to be doing that. And your grief is that he couldn't do all those things, and it's so sad. And it was like she spoke to an utter truth. And she then said, he wants you to know that he's still doing all those things. It just went so deeply into my heart. It shifted something, because that's what I was believing. It was my belief and the knowing of consciousness existing beyond the physical body was so brought home. And I remember riding home that night, and all the grief came out of me. But there was something that shifted, that the deep knowing that I looked at her and I said, he exists, because I wasn't sure up until that point. And she looked at me and she said, of course he exists. And then she shared she'd been a medium, psychic medium, for 20 years, and she'd, all the experiences that she'd had. And it was a belief. There's always the word lie in the word belief. It became a truth in that moment, not belief. It was just, I could let him be. A lot of people hold on to the grief because they feel they've lost somebody or something. Now, I love it when people come in. It's like, you've got grief, you've lost somebody, I'm the person. And I have helped a lot of people, because I've been able to take, with this deep knowledge of what is beyond life, because it's lived in me. It's not an idea, it's lived. And I'm so comfortable with it. And I know, I feel him, I feel his existence. And I have a deep understanding he came here to teach me. And I just feel so incredible. Rather than I lost a son, I am so grateful that this beautiful soul came to be with me for 11 years of my life.
And then that shifts everything with the gratitude, compassion, and the love.
Everything, yeah. And I celebrate life now because of his existence, every moment.
It's so beautiful. And then your purpose, right? Your purpose becomes...
Life is very short. That was another of the teachings. Grab it now. Live your life right now. Don't wait. Don't wait.
Why did you keep doing more? What about the naturopath? Hold on, let me say that right. What about naturopathy?
Naturopathy, yeah.
What about naturopathy? Why did we keep going and doing more? Because that is a whole nother realm of your amazingness, was what we did last week with bioresonance.
With the bioresonance, yeah.
Yeah.
Tools. I think I rest on my laurels with the tools, homeopathic medicine, naturopathic, spagyrics now. Spagyrics has opened a whole world, because spagyric medicine is really a way to extract the intelligence from nature. That's what it is. It's light codes, intelligent light codes. And you take them, and I love working with that now. And so all these things support. And my sessions, as you know, that it's never one thing. The structure's solid because a fieldwork session is you lie down. I'm going to take you in. I'm going to get you out of your head. And whatever you're holding will come to the surface, and it does. It always does. Because you're coming for a reason for you. And we'll process it. We'll help you bring the awareness to if you're looping. Sometimes there's ancestral stuff. Sometimes it's gestalt. There's somebody you want to not bury the hatchet. You want to actually bring the light of awareness and release that person in your life. So it's there's many aspects to it. But your shift, you become more connected to your intelligence. That's what it's about. That's what I'm interested in. The past 3-4 years, it's been spagyric medicine, it's shifted me because it's helped me connect with my intelligence. And now I think I've always done individual sessions, and now I'm deepening the training with it. And also now the next thing is collaborating with people to have workshops to if people want to learn this way. And I want to simplify it as well, so it doesn't have to be that complex. But the key to, if you're a space holder and you want to learn this work, what's great about it is the learning to do this work will be you going to the next level within yourself.
The embodiment
of it, yeah, that's what I love.
Yeah, that's the best word of it all.
It's the best.
Because in order for you to hold somebody, like you said, who better than you to walk somebody through loss than somebody who's walked the run?
Who's gone through it.
Who's gone through it and held it.
Yeah.
Now, when I came in, obviously I process very different stuff. Mine's all the sexual trauma of this life and moving through that.
Yeah.
You blew my mind when you put my hands on that bioresonance device, and it told me all of my patterns, what was going on. It was spot on.
Yeah.
How would you explain that, and why would you recommend that to anybody that's watching that process?
I had a very interesting conversation with a guy who's I'm excited to know what he's going to do, but I can only say a little bit about it because it's in the process, but it's like changing the world. And what he's connecting to is the intelligence. So we've got AI now, but in fact, he said, do you know what is the most intelligent thing in the world? And I thought about it. And I couldn't say. I was like, And I was thinking dolphins or whales or whatever. And he looked at me and he said, it's agate. It's crystal. So there's universal intelligence that's held in things we don't even know about. And he's connecting to it. He's actually writing it. So he's got the intelligence of nature, and they're merging it with what we think of as artificial. And he's hoping to help it change this whole planet, which is amazing. I mean, he blew me away. And I'm hoping to talk more to him. And it's coming, but it's all in the process. And I have a feeling that that's what, COVID was about. It was an awakening. And I was challenging him about, what we think of as evil. And he said, oh, that's all gone. He said, don't worry about that. That's all going. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about that. The intelligence of nature is bigger. It's bigger
speaking.
Than that.
You see, like all of the plants are speaking all of a sudden. Like, why are there shamans popping out of left, right, and center?
Right.
Because nature's done. I feel like nature's wants to come back into harmony, and it's stronger than humans.
Yeah.
In a way.
Totally. So the bioresonance is a machine, and the reason why I mentioned him is that when I trained in it, and we were doing this work, and because what it's doing is it's kind of running a signal through you, and it's got a lot of algorithms on the database. So you can look at hormones, you can look at your digestion, and you can look at many, many different things, but you can also look at your consciousness, as you found with that one program we did, which blew me away. And when I was doing the training, I remember the guy in Petersfield in England, and I was so blown away myself because it was coming out with stuff. And I remember looking at him and I said, I kind of did this, and I said, this is connecting to this, isn't it? The field. And he looked at me and he went, yeah. And that was it. That's all I got. And it's like, I don't understand how that works. I mean, if you look up anything about radionics, and we've got Wi-Fi, and it makes, the science is pretty solid, because right now there's all these signals that we can't see them. But there is an intelligent field, and it is Gaia, it is Mother Earth, and it is the plants, and it's animals, and it's way beyond human intelligence. And that's how it works. It's a connection to the intelligent field, and you tap into it. And I think what was beautiful about it was that, and now I found a way, actually myself, with asking AI to interpret, because for a decade I've been interpreting it. And it's okay, and people go, wow, and they see things which are very real, like the homeopathic remedy, and I read the homeopathic remedy, you say, that's me, that's spot on, that's just what I need right now. And I give you the homeopathic and you feel it, and it's like, oof, I can feel that lifting me, and all the other things. So yeah, I'd never be able to, it's literally signals. There is something bigger. Maybe it is God.
Right, and we can all agree and disagree with the name of what we want to call it.
Exactly.
But there's a universal intelligence.
There's a universal intelligence, yeah.
And we're all tapped into it.
And there's different ways to tap into it. You can tap into it. And for years, people have said, how do you tap into it? Come into 0 point, come into coherence, you meditate, whatever the practice is. And there might be somebody out there who's got an amazing device that you wear around your neck. It could be the bioresonance machine. Many, many different things. It could be a tuning fork that's at 111 frequency. But coherence, 0 point, is very real. Because when you're in alignment, it just feels so good.
There's a knowing that you're there.
Inner knowing.
The second that I realize that I'm there, I'm kind of out. Do you know? Like
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm there. Oh, but if I'm there, what's here? And then
Right.
there it fractures again, right? But it's almost like that convergence point of how often do you give yourself time and space to sit with yourself in stillness and allow yourself to even be in that field without the thought, without the chaos, and without all the drama, without all the I have to do this. Like, how often do we give ourselves presence to just be with ourselves? Because what sits in there is the fear of being alone, right?
The mind comes in and makes judgments.
Right? And so that's why when you come into that space of your session and you're able to actually, the body, you work with the body, and it's like, you can't deny that that's real. My body just released a bunch of emotions from places I didn't know I was holding them. I felt tension coming in. I don't moving out. There's more space. My thoughts have changed, and now my life has changed. Yeah. So it has to be real.
It's
you
very
can't
real.
deny it.
It's very real.
Why I really hope that you start to share your message a lot more is that you bridge the gap between science and God.
Yeah.
Like there's everyone, the way that I have ever experienced it, it's very mystical. It's very, I don't really know what's going on. It's not, I can't talk to you about the science, but I know that something is different in the way that I'm behaving because of the way I feel. But when you can explain that, it makes everything make sense, which makes the mysticalism feel safer to go further.
Yeah.
Because you sometimes can feel, and I know a lot of people, when you start this path, like, am I losing my mind? I'm looking at the world in such a different way. I don't really belong in the way that I was programmed. I'm looking at everything in the constructs of how I came in, and that world doesn't make sense, but where do I go next? Yeah. So what would be your advice to somebody that's, listening to this and they're like, wow, that makes sense. What's the first step if they can't come to Bali? Would you have them read a book or?
Yeah, it's trusting that life, whatever it is in life, is showing you all the time. If it's you just broken up with somebody and they broke your heart, there's an opportunity, or you just got sacked, or something wonderful happened. Generally, when we are experiencing and we trust and a good thing comes, and then suddenly there's a synchronicity. It's like, oh, now this is here. Oh, suddenly somebody shows up, or the right person shows up in your life. It's like you're up leveling. Jung called it synchronicity. And synchronicity means you're in alignment. And if you know that, and to get to alignment, you've got to kind of let go. So at some level, if there's discomfort, whatever it is that helps you to kind of meet that part of you, I think that is the key. And a lot of people get stuck. It's like, I'm blocked. It's because there's a program of I've got to protect myself. I can't feel this. It's too much. And there's a lot of different things. I've designed this. I feel it's quite complete because it's working on all these levels. It's working on your structure. But I've done sessions with people online, and it's just being present with yourself. Being present with yourself. And another book I'd recommend is Impact Presence Process, which is
my homework.
It's your homework by Michael Brown. And in my dad's attic, I've got probably 3,000 books on personal growth, psychology, spirituality, you name it, medicine. I put it on the top. I remember when I first got it, and I've always said that to people, and I like to say that. I put this on the top because this guy did everything that he went to all the people that I've trained to be, homeopaths and naturopaths and osteopaths. And it was only when he was present, because he had Horton's neuralgia. It's like intractable pain, incurable pain. But when he was really present, and his book describes how to be present with presence process, connected breath, to really be with what it is that you're scared to be with, his life changed and his pain disappeared. I'm just helping you to really be with you.
And you can only do that because you're present with you. That's the embodiment factor.
I'm learning to be more present with me all the time.
Yeah.
And it moves me to, when I say that, I feel the emotion right now.
Yeah.
And the impact, it's not grief, it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful feeling to be really here right now in this.
Be here in this.
Yeah, and whatever it is, because sometimes I might be angry or disappointed or whatever, but if I can really be with those feelings, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't feel better, get better at feeling.
I love that so much. And I know there's going to be lots of questions about what's next for Phil and how you're leaving this legacy. But other than one-on-one work and trainings, is there anything else that you see in your future for what you're going to bring to this world?
I think, I've written a book called Insight Osteopathy, and that's on Amazon.
It's amazing. Highly recommend reading it.
Yeah.
I've read it 3 times. It really breaks this down in a digestible way.
It does. There's a whole chapter on what it is. So it's evolved to field work, and that's in the forming. I've kind of got all the chapters together, so it really summarises and goes into more depth. And the next thing is collaboration. So I'm collaborating with somebody called Susanna, who's been running an organisation called De-Armouring Arts for at least 15 years, and she's kind of moved out of their space because I did her workshop last year. And it made me see the power of this. And I thought, I was there for 11 days, and I thought, give me one person from this group, because there were 35 people, and give me 2 hours with them. And I know they will be in a different space. They will be in a different state, a much better state of consciousness in 2 hours, as opposed to 11 days on this workshop. And I just say that with it helped me really see and know, because I've been doing this for many, many years, but it is time now I want to share this with people, and I want people to be available. So I'm collaborating with her, and we're going to be doing a training in Sweden. It'll be a 10-day training in Sweden. And I want to do that more. I want larger groups. I think what we did today, when there was a group of us, is so nice, and I want to move into larger groups of people. And I think it'll morph into people being able to read the book and work on themselves as well, and just have the information to do accelerated personal growth. And in fact, Michael Brown says in his book, if you haven't come across that bit, he doesn't like to use the word heal because it presumes something's wrong. His word is integration.
It's the best word.
It's the best word because there isn't anything wrong. You don't need to heal.
I stopped calling myself a healer because
right.
I'm not. I'm a space holder.
Me too. Yeah, it's awareness, and I feel so privileged to have more awareness, and I'm still learning, and I will continue to learn till I leave this planet. And it's people with awareness, and it's so nice to be around people that are aware, and to have that level, that relationship, conscious relationship, where I'm going to own my stuff. I'm going to project less onto you, or if I do, I can talk about it. Oh, I'm projecting, and I'm never going to blame you, ever. I'm going to own, because my feelings all come from inside me. And imagine a world where people are able to do that. It would be amazing. We'd have so much more fun.
Right? Even just sitting in our truth and being like, can we just all sit together and everyone just speak their truth? I just had a really difficult conversation, and I had like 7 sessions like with myself leading up to it, and the loop of what was going on. And then my teacher said something very profound. One of them, she said, if you could summarize the entire 7 days and you had one sentence to say what you need to say, what would it be? And I just spoke it, and then I heard it, and I was like, fuck. You know, it was like, that's it. But I don't want to say that because of all of the things I believe are going to come from that.
Right.
But the truth will set you free.
Right.
And I just have to honor that, and whatever happens,
Yeah.
be willing for whatever the, circumstances are of this truth.
Yes.
To be able to sit and receive whatever that is and the experience I've created.
Yes.
But if I keep bypassing my truth, I'm going to stay in my loop forever.
I have this belief that the soul is ready to, it's not even going to another level. It's like, I'm done with that experience. I think it's as simple as that. I'm done with that experience, so I don't need to keep doing this anymore.
If you had advice for anybody that's watching this about getting going on their journey, what would you say? Final words.
For me, when I said it, I always feel very privileged when people come in because I know they're ready. So if you're watching this and you know that you're ready, I probably reading the Presence Process, actually. Like I said, it's the top of the pile because that's the practice. Because the next thing to do is act. It's like, you could be, I'm depressed, or maybe next week I'll do something, or I've got this pain, I don't know, maybe I'll see somebody. It's kind of, and that was the one take actually from my psychosynthesis training, was where is your will? What's going to activate your will right now to do something about it? And whatever it might be. It could be finding out more about what I do, or it could be, because there are so many wonderful teachers, every single personal growth book out there has got a message. So do something. And it's like, feel that and move.
Take action.
Take action.
Stop living.
Yeah. Breathe. Take a deep breath and just do it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was an honor and super humbling to have you on. And just thank you for all the work that you do. You're really incredible. Hope you know that.
Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed it.
Wow. That's just one of those conversations that stays with you forever. Phil's work reminds us that the body is never broken. It's communicating all the time. And when we learn how to listen, real healing becomes possible. I'm so deeply grateful for the impact he's had on my own life, and I hope this episode opened something new for you too, whether that's curiosity, understanding, or a deeper sense of trust in your body. And if this conversation resonated, I encourage you to explore Phil's work in his book, Insight Osteopathy, and to reflect on how you might begin relating to your own healing more holistically. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.